Hi everyone, so I come to you today a little confused. So my last video, the one comparing the two processors, the X5680 and the W5590, towards the end of the video I played a game, which is Burnout Paradise, and I was like, okay, so I logged some time on the 8 core and kind of got a feeling for how it played, and then put in the 12 core, and I thought I was like tripping or something because the the 12 core had more legs, and I was like, well, I don't remember changing the settings. I didn't update the graphics card. I didn't change anything. Still has 96 gigs of RAM and everything. So I took it apart and I put the 8 core processors in. Didn't change any settings, nothing, and it was smooth, or much, not completely smooth. It was much smoother than the 12 core, and I was furthermore confused, so I wanted to document it. So I downloaded Fraps and recorded some of the gameplay just to see the difference, and I couldn't believe it. The 12 core was lagging out, and the average frames per second for the 12 core was 51.757, and for the 8 core it was 55.35. So there's about a roughly 4 frame per second difference, but it seems like there's more latency with the 12 core because you can see it visually tear and lag, much worse than the 8 core, which after paying $100 for two of the processors, I'm like, why is it doing this? I didn't touch Windows, I didn't install anything. The only thing I did was change up the processors. Everything else stayed the same. And noticeably, Windows 7 is much more laggier. Like when I right click, it takes a good minute before the thing pops up. In the 8 core, it popped up instantly, but command prompt fixed that. I tried disabling hibernation, I tried disabling the page file. The only thing that seemed to make a difference was when I went into msconfig and I changed out the processors that Windows saw. When I changed it out to 16 instead of the 24 because of the hyperthreading, it made, like, the FPS went up to 52.5 average. And then when I went down to just 8 cores, it was the same as the 12 core, or the 24 total cores. So I have no clue. Maybe just Windows can't handle all the cores, or who knows. I downloaded Throttle Stop. I ran the results. I'll throw the graph on, or maybe I'll talk about them in a few seconds. I disabled Turbo Boost. I changed whatever I could to have a difference that I could see, and nothing. So you can view the video that follows this to see the difference. I'll try and make them rather short and a montage or whatever, just to see what the difference is. But I'm really still confused. Maybe someone has a solution that I haven't seen on the internet, or leave it in the comments below, because the methodology that I used isn't flawed. I have the Fraps log that I'm looking at right now. The difference I see is that the max is the same. I think it's the highest the game supports is 61 frames per second, but the lowest with the with this processor, the 12 core, it seems like the lowest dropped 20 frames per second. Like, I have some frames per second that are at 30, 12 even. With the other processor, it never went below like 50, or like 45, I think is the lowest. So I don't really know. And there's a processor compare tool that started all this that said you're gonna double your frames per second on most, like, DirectX 9 and 10 games with the 12 core. And I was like, okay, we can quantify that, but is it just my system, or Windows can't deal with 96 gigs of RAM? Or the only thing that I looking solely at the data, the only thing I can see is that the processor is just having issues, and they're paired processors. So yeah, make your own conclusions on the data that I collected, because I can't even make a conclusion for you besides saying that the 8-core frames per second average is going to perform better than the 12-core frames per second. That's based on my data. You can watch the video that's coming up to see how different it looks, because that's the only conclusions I can gather based on my data. I think I'm going back to the 8-core, because this is, I mean, it's cool. I use Windows pretty frequently, and it's noticeably slower. Like, not just a little bit. You can see that, hey, you open Chrome and you have to look at the white screen for 3 to 4 seconds. The 8-core just flies through it, and the video editing time, it's going to take 3-4 minutes longer. Okay, that's fine with me. I can wait. Yeah, I was a little disappointed, as you can probably tell. So if you're gonna do a lot of boot camp with Windows stuff, I would not recommend the 12-core. Stick with the WS5590. They're like $40 for both processors, and they're much faster than the 12-core in actual use. Sure, you can look at the benchmarks. The benchmarks are going to be faster, but unless you're trying to have a high score versus actually using it nice, I'd stick to the 12-core. That's personally my opinion. You can differ. You can spend $100 on the processors and have the same results as I do. So yeah, stick around for the next one.